James Creedon's with us on the other side of the studio with the latest vote that Theresa May has lost in the Brexit saga.
That's right, and so there was a vote. There were 3 votes, 2 essentially on no deal, whether or not the Parliament would motions for no deal. So there was a degree of relief expressed by some on social media, Mark, just taking members of the public reacting to this, that no deal seemed to be a little bit less.
No deal
likely.
is now off the table,
right?
But
right, and indeed, I'll show you some of the kind of the because of course it is a bit. Is there a table? We'll get there. We'll get there in a sec.
I like it.
I've ruined it now. There was a nice tweet.
Not at all. I like it. It's good.
308 MPs apparently felt that it was okay to gamble with people's jobs and lives. The rich and the gamblers like Rees-Mogg and David Davis have an excuse, preferring to believe the romance of 18th century economics. So this is basically somebody saying, yes, by 4 votes, no deal was removed from the table, but 308 MPs actually still voted for it.
Indeed, Jacob Rees-Mogg of the European Reform Group, who was the arch-Brexiteer,
Yes.
David Davis, who of course was Brexit minister, then resigned because he didn't like how it was going. He wanted Brexit at all costs, etc., etc. These people want out, whatever happens.
That's right. They're the hardcore Brexiteers indeed. Now, our elected politicians are a disgrace. There's a lot of this sentiment on social media. People really tired of how prolonged this is. Taking no deal, and this is somebody saying actually, from the point of view of negotiating, taking no deal off the table plays into the hands of the EU. This is another comment saying that as well. Congratulations, Parliament, you've just removed your negotiating backstop. #negotiating for dummies. In other words, perhaps not the best.
No, it's right. It's true.
Well, that's true too. The good news is that no deal is off the table. The bad news is that there isn't a table. That was the comment I was referring to earlier. And meanwhile, this is our own Catherine Nicholson, who, like many journalists, is trying to...
Our Europe editor, no less, yes.
That's right, and she's been doing great tweeting this evening throughout the session. Theresa May reminds House of Commons that no deal remains the default under UK law and tells MPs they need to decide on how to proceed. So that's pretty surprising. She's essentially saying, she's echoing what Rees-Mogg said. The law still says we leave on 29th of March, which you wouldn't expect her to say necessarily. In any case, all very confusing. Then, of course, there was the Malthouse compromise. That was another vote this evening. Essentially an alternative to the withdrawal agreement that Brussels never liked at all.
Of those 3 votes, it was the first one that was the one that was the whole
no
crux
deal.
of the matter about the no deal, I think. When you get down to the Malthouse agreement and the other variants, I think it's kind of like all variations on a theme.
Right.
The headline is no deal off the table.
That's it.
Rees-Mogg saying, hang on a minute, that's not the case because the law's already been passed that Brexit is happening on the 29th. These are just amendments or motions which don't carry any weight. And as you were saying earlier, we need to go to law to get that changed. No sign it's going to happen yet. And of course, another vote tomorrow, isn't there?
It's very hard to keep up with the whole thing. But in any case, this Malthouse compromise was viewed as bonkers by many people, and that was a...
Bonkers is the word there, wasn't it?
That was Brussels' point of view, according to Jennifer Rankin. I didn't see where the quote exactly came from, but this is Peter Foster of the Daily Telegraph, their Europe editor. He's saying the Malthouse pay-as-you-go amendment was delusional. Unicorns really do have more chance of existing. We'll get back to unicorns in a moment. Lots of them this evening. Anyway, meanwhile, seriously, there are actually more unicorns. Barnier basically said, the chief negotiator for Brussels, said, look, the deal is done. The talks are complete. We're not having any further discussions. Financial Times saying here that this was a coordinated warning to Westminster coming from others as well, saying that the EU is basically no deal is now being prepared for. Meanwhile, I said unicorns would come back. That's a unicorn there at the bottom of a little drawing and a letter written by Sophie, who is 6. And she wrote to Donald Tusk, head of the European Council, saying, I live in Britain. I know we are leaving the EU, but I think we should be friends. Please may I have a signed photo of you for my Europe book. I have drawn you a unicorn.
How sweet is that?
It is very sweet, but
how sweet is that?
I'm beginning to wonder, was it not one of Donald Tusk's friends' daughters?
Sure it's not. Sure it's not. It's very sweet.
Anyway, it is very sweet. And Donald Tusk said, we will always be friends, Sophie. So that was kind of nice. But then it got shared by Guy Verhofstadt, head of one of the groups in the European Parliament.
Guy Verhofstadt.
Also a very, very pro-European figure.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes it takes a child to put everything in perspective. What a terrible waste. So there definitely is, if you go back to the Financial Times headline, a coordinated warning or a coordinated response at least. Speaking of unicorns, the Irish Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, in the US for St. Patrick's Day or St. Patrick's festivities, spoke, he tweeted today as well about no deal. Now, no deal is something that is obviously a concern, not just in the UK, but in other countries affected, such as Ireland. And he said, I know many people must be worried. but the government is doing its best, to protect you, whatnot. But he also had this to say: unicorns only exist in fairy tales.
Indeed.
That was a reference.
I love
to
that kind
hard
of.
Brexiteers.
I love the explanation from a parent to a child about what Brexit is, and he said it's like 28 of you building a Lego model with all the pieces. Then you decide you want to take out all your blue ones in one go.
Yeah.
That kind of sums it up in a way. So it's kind of like, because no one else can define what Brexit's going to be,
Right.
even now, which I find pathetic. The whole thing, really.
Unpacking it and unlocking it legislation-wise is
whether you're for it,
comparable
whether
to
you're
Lego.
against it. The fact we can't define it now is actually pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
James, thank you very
Thanks,
much
Mark.
indeed. James of the Media Watch.